What's up, guys? Today we are going to cover just a few of my favorite budget welding tools. And what do I mean by budget? I mean cheap. All right, starting this thing off, thing that every single welder needs: C-clamps, clamps, clamps, clamps. Always need clamps. The more clamps, the better, and of different sizes. And that's why I say go with budget C-clamps, man. C-clamps are cheap to begin with, but if you get like really cheap C-clamps, if you're just using these things to hold your jigs in place or to hold some metal in place before you weld it really quick, budget C-clamps are amazing. You can get these for as low as $1, and then it just kind of goes up from there depending on the size that you want. You can get these pretty much anywhere, any hardware store, Northern Tool, Home Depot, Harbor Freight. I get a lot of these from Harbor Freight because really they're super cheap. C-clamps. Gotta have them. Now don't get me wrong, I love me some Vise grips. We beat the living crap out of our Vise grips, and I really only have a few times where I have actually broken a Vise clamp or they failed on me, and they were super old. Vise clamps are great, and more expensive clamps like this are fantastic, but they are expensive. They are super expensive compared to cheap C-clamps. So if you're just starting out and you got a budget, even if you have all of the budget in the world, get yourself some cheap C-clamps. Next, and many of you could probably guess this one coming up because it's my favorite tool, known to man even more so than a welder. Angle grinders come in many different price points, and you would think that the more expensive, bigger name brands would outlast and outperform some of the cheaper, who knows their name, brands. Well, let me tell you, I have tested every single grinder known to man, and they all last the same in this environment, doing this kind of work, metal work. And I use an angle grinder to cut things constantly, not just grind down, weld smooth, but we actually use it to cut a lot of material, especially out on job sites. And if you've ever looked at angle grinders, you know that the price points vary drastically, anywhere from $25, yeah, $25, all the way up to well over $100. And when you're looking at a tool like this that you use day in and day out, you think, okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna splurge for the bigger name brands and the higher price point, thinking it's gonna last longer. But the fact is, when you're getting in here and you're getting in all this metal dust and you're just constantly putting this thing through cutting metal and grinding and all of that stuff in a metal environment that we are in, that dust just destroys these things like nobody's business. And it doesn't matter if you spend $150, $200, or $25, they are all gonna wear out exactly the same. And when you're buying these things, they all come with the same stuff. They all come with a key, and they all come with some attachments like a couple grinding discs, a flat disc, a handle, and a guard. They all come with the same stuff. So why spend that extra money when you're just gonna be buying these things at the same rate over and over and over? Get the cheap ones. They all do the same thing. I promise you, you won't regret it. Next up, bolt cutters. Yep, bolt cutters. Now this might seem a little strange, and this is actually more of a specific case, but if you're doing a lot of things where you're doing a lot of small rod, like round rod, maybe you're doing some ornate bending kind of things, or things like bottle trees, or even on some railings and gates and stuff where you're bending a lot of smaller rod. Now, really anything under like a ½ inch, where you're gonna have to cut a lot of pieces. Now, instead of trying to chop those on a saw or put those under an angle grinder or something like that, we just use bolt cutters. Easy peasy, super fast. You don't have to get really expensive bolt cutters. Got these from Harbor Freight. You can see they've got some nicks and stuff in there. That's fine, whatever. It still cuts through that rod super buttery smooth and super fast. I think I paid $10 for these things, probably about 4 or 5 years ago. Still going strong. We use them every month. We use these, and it's not a problem at all. So if you're cutting a lot of small stuff, a lot of rod, even some square stuff, we cut some really small square stuff with this, get yourself some bolt cutters. All right, next one, and I might get a little bit of flack off of this one, but that's okay. I generally do get flack off of these videos, and that is gloves. Don't be afraid to buy bulk gloves. You don't have to have super expensive, super thick, just made solely for welding gloves. Now, if you are out in the field and you're welding some really big, thick, heavy industrial stuff, yeah, get yourself some gloves that are gonna take care of you and last a while. But if you're just making smaller things in your shop, you don't have to have those crazy $15, $20, $25 pair of gloves. Those are insane for just working around in your shop. Go on Amazon or somewhere like that and just buy yourself some bulk gloves that, I mean, you want good thick gloves, things that are gonna stand up to welding, but you know the kind of work that you're doing. Yeah, some might last a little bit longer, but you're working with metal all day long. You're gonna be cutting these gloves up, burning through them. It's okay for you to buy some cheaper gloves and have more around, so when you do mess them up, you can just grab yourself another pair and you don't feel like, oh, great, I just went through $25 there in a week. So the next one is going to be sockets. Cheap sockets. You don't have to have the Snap-on, the Craftsman, or whatever other name brand super expensive tool set. You don't need that to be able to install railings and fences and gates and that kind of thing. Now, if you're doing something else that requires you to have really expensive tools, then by all means get those. But I imagine that most of you guys are just installing railings and fences and gates and that kind of thing, and we are generally using the same sockets over and over and over again. We don't need a whole lot of crazy stuff. So, discount tools, totally fine to use. I have never, in all of the years that we've been doing this, ever had a problem with using discount sockets. Now, of course, we drop them sometimes and they will break. Big deal, it costs a few bucks and we'll just go pick up another one. We actually have quite a few for each install bag that we have. We just keep a set in there. So cheap sockets are okay to go with. All right, so that's it for this one. Some great budget tools for you to start with. I mean, even if you've been doing this for years and years and years, these are still the budget tools that we use after all of this time, when we don't really have to get budget tools anymore, but they still work beautifully for us, so we have never changed. A fun fact, I think I actually spent more on this water bottle than I did any of those tools that I showed you. What's that say about me? So that's it for this one, and I will see you guys next time.